What's going on? We are fresh off of a super exciting Fort Worth Lorcana challenge, and almost out of nowhere, there's a new Emerald deck that completely shakes up the meta. And the best part, this one doesn't even use Bucky, so it doesn't get affected by the errata, and it'll still be legal in Toronto. This deck was piloted by Jourdon to get him to a top 8 finish at a Disney Challenge event in Fort Worth, Texas. Now, we don't have the final deck list yet, but this is going to be a great estimation on what he was running, and then of course there's going to be hidden text here and there to really play against what matchups you expect. Now, starting off with the characters, we're going to do 4 Diablos, because later on, we're also going to have 4 of the shifted Diablos, so that we're constantly drawing cards. When our opponent draws cards, this is going to help in matchups, specifically against your Ruby Amethyst and your Emerald Steel, where they're always drawing cards. We are at risk of getting this removed very easily, but the theme of this deck is going to be super heavy onto the discard, so hopefully we can get those cards out of the opponent's hands. Speaking of removal, our next character is going to be at a 2-drop. It's going to be Ursula, Deceiver. This will allow us to get songs out of the opponent's hand. It's also another way to keep tabs on the opponent's hand, especially later in the game when you think a Be Prepared is coming, or maybe your opponent's only out is a Grab Your Sword. This can be a great card to catch that, pull it out of the hand, and then really set up your side of the board for success. Now, a new character that we haven't seen much in Emerald decks is going to be Sir Hiss. He's a 3/1 evasive character for 2 ink. With the 3 strength, this is going to counter things like Ruby's Flynn from getting the free lore from playing it early. It's also going to be able to take out Diablos in 1 hit with the evasive. Now, at our 3 costs, we're going to have 4 Ariels. This card's going to be used to go deeper into our deck, really find the songs that we need for removal, the songs we need for discard, and because it's a Singer 5, it's going to really contribute to our Sing Together card that we'll take a look at later in the video. We also have an alternate way to draw cards at our 3-drop. We've got Prince John. He's got ward, so he can't be targeted by removal, so this is going to be the play if you're going up against Steel. Maybe you even want to throw in a Hidden Cove to give him a little bit more willpower to survive a Grab Your Sword, but we didn't see any Hidden Coves in Jordan's deck or in Steve Bevan's deck, so we're leaving it out of here. But Prince John's very good. Every time your opponent discards a card, we're going to be drawing a card. He also quests for 2, so if we are sure that he's safe and we're getting more to the late game, we can quest really quickly with a couple of these on the board. And we're also going to be running 4 copies of the Muse, another ward character for Emerald. There are 2/4, and whenever you play a song, you can return a character with 2 strength or less to that player's hand. This is going to be great to get rid of some of the lower cost characters that Ruby Amethyst has. It's also going to be great at getting rid of like your bells from your Sapphire players. And because we have so many songs in the deck, we're always going to be able to activate this. And the great part about this card is you can either choose your opponent's card or your own card. So if we have cards that do things when they enter the battlefield, like our Ariel, we'll be able to reuse them with the Muse. This is just going to sit on our side of the field ready so that we never exert it. We're always getting the benefit from its effect. And then we could pick and choose, depending on the situation, if we want to get rid of an opponent's card or if we want to reuse one of our own cards. Next up, we've got our 5-cost characters, and this is the highest that we're going to be going in the deck. So if you want to only go up to 5 or 6 ink, you should be pretty good to stay at that level with this, especially since a lot of our cards are singing the songs. 5 is kind of the sweet spot, allowing us to play really low to the ground and really make use of our characters that we get onto the board. But for 5 costs, we're going to have our 4 copies of Cri-Kee. This is our power quester to win the game. 3 lore, and when they enter the battlefield, they'll give a character +3 strength for this turn, which will allow our smaller characters to put good damage onto Queen's Castle and some other locations. It can also be used to surprise an opponent and take something out that they weren't expecting. Maybe they were trying to be slick and get a quest in here because we only have a 1 strength character on the board, but Cri-Kee allows us to drop it down, get a little bit of a surprise because we're doing +3 to whatever's on the board already. So a great card to include here, multiple uses, super high quester. So late game, this is going to be your closeout card to swing the situation into your favor, and then you're going to be profiting off of the 3 lore every turn it stays out there. And then our last 5-cost character is going to be Kida. This is the Floodborn Kida, Protector of Atlantis. We don't have the small Kida in this version of the deck, but when we play it at the 5 cost, every character on the board is going to get -3 strength, which is going to allow things like our Muses and our Under the Sea that you'll see in a second to take effect to characters that they normally don't hit. And because this affects the entire board, characters with ward are still affected by this card, meaning that a character with ward like the Ariel and Sapphire that typically gets around things targeting her, this will still hit it, and then our Under the Sea could get it to the bottom of the other player's deck. So this is a very strong card. If you're having trouble getting it out, you could run the small 1-drop Kida, but because we're not trying to sneak this out any quicker, we can get this out on turn 5 if we need to, especially since we're going to ideally want to have our Ariel already set up to contribute to the Sing Together cost. It's perfectly fine to play this alone with no 1-drop and no shift. And that's it for the characters in the deck. Moving on now to the single action that we have in our deck. We've got 2 copies of You Have Forgotten Me. This could be a killer piece when you get your opponent down to just 2 cards. Maybe they've been holding on to their Be Prepared and they've been strategically discarding around it. You throw this down and they're forced to get rid of both cards that they're holding on to. Super powerful card to come in late in the game when your opponent's really fighting to hold cards in their hand. And then now onto the bulk part of the deck, our utility. We are running 24 copies of songs. This might be considered like Emerald song version of a deck. But to start out, we'll do 4 copies of Sudden Chill, allowing us to force our opponent to discard a card. And because this can be sing rather early with our 2-drop characters, we're going to get great use out of this card. Like I said, the main gameplay of this deck is to get ahead as early as possible, force your opponent to get rid of all of their cards. That way they don't have an answer to our Cri-Kee when he comes on the board for our questing. And this card is going to be great at lowering the hand size. Up next, another 2-cost song that we're going to be playing 4 copies of is the Bare Necessities. Just like Sudden Chill, the whole purpose of this card is to get things out of your opponent's hand that will clear our side of the board. But with Bare Necessities, we're going to be able to target anything that's not a character, meaning based on the situation, if we need to get rid of a Be Prepared, if we need to get rid of a Brawl, Queen's Castle, whatever it is, we can get rid of it. Against Sapphire Steel, we're going to want to be targeting their ramp. So if that's a 1-jump ahead, or if that's a Fishbone Quill, we can get rid of those. And then once we get our opponents down to minimum hand size, we want to get things out of their hand that's going to refill it. So getting rid of your Friends on the Other Side, or Sapphire Steel, we're getting rid of the Whole New Worlds. This is a super strong card to include in the deck, and like all of our songs, they could be sung by most of our characters since we're only running 1-drop in the deck. All right, and next up, a card that we don't normally see played very often. It's going to be Painting the Roses Red. This is a card from set 2, which when you sing it or when you play it, you get to choose 2 characters and give them -1 strength, which is going to pair really nicely because we do have the Muses in this deck. We do have Under the Sea in this deck. Also, we're going to go +1 on our card draw, which for a card that can be sung by almost all characters in our deck, we're going to potentially be able to remove cards from their side of the field, and we get the card advantage in our hand. Super strong inclusion for the deck. All right, and next up, we're going to talk about our removal even further. We're going to use Mother Knows Best. It's a 3-cost uninkable card. It can be sung by any character 3 or greater, and we can return any character to that player's hand, which with our discard, we're going to be able to remove things very easily. We're going to use this card to get rid of the heavy hitters, like when a Tamatoa comes down, we could pop it back to a hand. If we're playing against Ruby Amethyst and we know a fox or a snake is coming back onto the field, we can get rid of the existing character so it can't be played, giving our characters a bit more safety in terms of questing. This card's going to make it really hard for our opponents to answer with their own characters, because we're going to be able to just say, nope, if it doesn't have rush, doesn't matter, can't attack me, it's going back to your hand. Now you have to wait another turn. Maybe that's another 5 lore that I have on my total now, and then I'll be able to close out the game even sooner. All right, now getting into the last 2 inclusions of the deck. First up, we've got 4 copies of We Don't Talk About Bruno. This is another card that's going to allow us to pick one of our opponent's cards, get it off the field, put it back into the opponent's hand. But with this one, they do need to discard a card from their hand at random. Usually how this works is we assign cards to a dice roll the dice and see what you're discarding. But if your opponent doesn't have any cards in the hand, this is a key tool to bounce something back to their hand and get rid of it completely to the discard pile. This is going to be one of the key songs that our Ariel is hopefully singing, which will keep all of our other characters that are doing the questing safe and ready to contribute to the next big play. And then finally, the main identity of the deck, it is Under the Sea. This is our Sing Together card. This has been referred to as the Sing Together deck for Emerald Amber. And how this card works is when you get 8 total cost characters, that could be Ariel Singer 5, plus a 3-cost character, they could both exert to sing this. And when they do, your opponent needs to take all the characters with 2 strength or less on their side of the field and put it to the bottom of their deck. Meaning, unless they have a deck shuffle mechanic or they have some crazy card draw, they're not going to see it again in the game. This card is our big swing moment and most likely how we close out most of our games. We go wide in a situation where the opponent can't answer. We play Under the Sea, and then we just win because your opponent's not going to be able to replay all those cards, especially when we're keeping them to either 1 or 2 cards in hand at max. And there you have it. That is the full deck profile. I'll include a link down below to Dreamborn so you can download it, check it out yourself, make your own tweaks. Is this something you're going to take to the last weekend of Set Champs? It's very similar to an Emerald Amber deck that I had built. I did use Bucky, and this might have a little bit more legs now that Bucky is not going to be around. Either way, I think this could be a super strong anti-meta solution that we've all been looking for. It really counters the top 4 decks of Ruby Amethyst, Emerald Steel, Sapphire Steel, and Ruby Sapphire, especially in a blind format where you don't know what you're playing against. This could be used to make the top cut at your tournaments just because you have the surprise factor alone, and it plays very well into all those featured matchups. I wouldn't be surprised if we see this deck and more variations of this deck start to make top cut at Toronto, especially since the Emerald Steel deck as we know it will be changing for Toronto with Bucky getting the card changes before that tournament. Let me know what you guys think of this deck. It made waves at the Fort Worth Challenge, making it all the way up to top 8. Congratulations again to Jourdon for amazing piloting of this deck. We also did see another top cut. Steve Bevins played a very similar version of this deck. Like I said, don't sleep on it. I think this is going to be the anti-meta solution or whatever it is. Thank you guys for watching. As you can see, we're super close to 500 subs. If you haven't already, please like the video. It really helps with getting this out to more Lorcana players. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because we'll be here all month opening up Shimmering Skies when it launches at hobby stores and at local stores. I hope you guys had a fantastic weekend. Thank you again for making us this far in the video, and I'll see you next time.